Welcome to AI Arena, a global machine learning competition where players can design, train, and battle AI-powered champions. I bet you are just metaphorically dying to own your very first AI fighter.
Welcome to the NFT Scoop podcast. Great to have you on, Wei and Malcolm. This has been a podcast that I've anticipated for a while. Obviously, we've spoken before, but everything that you guys are building is super exciting. You're tapping into two really on-trend industries and combining them into one. In fact, three. Okay, so we've got gaming, we have AI, which we know has absolutely exploded. And we've got NFTs and Web3. It is an absolute powerhouse of a project. Great to have you on. Welcome.
Thanks for having us. Excited to get into this conversation. We're really looking forward to it.
Amazing. So, I know we've got two of you here on the team, and I want to dive into the rest of the team as well. But first off, Wei, why don't you, be great if you could go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure thing. My name is Wei. I am a co-founder on the project. The company is called Arena X Labs. We're building the game called AI Arena. So my core daily function is I'm the COO of the company. So I lead everything outside of engineering and art. So that includes marketing, strategy, biz dev, operations, etc. Prior to AI Arena, I was in traditional finance. Led a large investment portfolio for a Canadian pension fund, or ran about $7 billion of capital within that program. That's when I started kind of looking into crypto, broader Web3 starting in 2018. And then come 2020, one of the other co-founders, Brandon, and myself, we were previously colleagues as well. We started to go down the NFT rabbit hole and realized that we could tokenize AI. And that led us to basically conceive of the idea that ultimately have created AI Arena and what we're currently working on today.
Amazing. Quite an extensive background. It's super impressive. And Malcolm, what about yourself? It'd be great to hear a little bit about your background and understand how you came to join Arena X Labs and AI Arena.
Sure thing. So my name is Malcolm, aka the MC, now Discord. So I'm the operational lead for AI Arena. So anything from event management, like contacting these esports team, setting things up, that's on me. And so this is actually my first position within Web3 space. So before joining the Arena X Labs, I actually work in traditional finance as well. So I work on the equity derivative trading side here, based in Hong Kong. So for a couple of years, I've been quite interested in just anything Web3. So a lot of the proprietary trading desks have moved it from traditional finance to the token trading side. But for me, I do want to switch into more sort of like, creating value, building community, and just all in all to be on the frontier of like establishing something new. So I was really lucky to be able to find Wei and Brandon and Arena X Labs as a whole, and just like, enable me, to find this new path. So that's how I come to the team.
Amazing. Well, it certainly seems like you've joined a rocket ship anyway. So, and where is it you guys are based? Are you remotely, globally distributed? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm actually in Toronto, Canada. There's probably half of our team. So there's 20 people working on the project full time right now. Well, actually over half. I would probably say like 60 to 70% of the people are in Canada. Malcolm is in Hong Kong, so he's on a different time zone. He sometimes works North American hours, which is incredible. But then we also have a few people in the US. I think one person in Latin America as well.
Amazing. So in terms of we'll dive into AI Arena. I'm sure everybody listening is like, okay, what is AI Arena if you haven't seen it already? But in terms of, I guess, your guys' growth, so, you sound like you've got quite an extensive team. Is that something that you've built out for a while? Who else is on the team? Who else are the core founders? And, how big is your team?
Sure thing. So there are three co-founders, myself, Brandon, who's CEO and CTO, so he leads the engineering efforts. And then Dylan, who's the art director, and so he leads the entire art and design effort. So those are the three core verticals. 20 people, like I mentioned, working full time. Some of our employees, some are like contractors, and we have also a few interns as well. I'd say it's pretty evenly distributed. There's probably around, I think, 6 people on the business side, 6 people together on the art side, and then 8 total on the engineering side. So it's a pretty decent sized team working on this. I mean, it's very difficult building a game to start, and in addition to that, building this type of game, which has never been done before, there's a lot of engineering work that had to basically be done up until this point to even get this game kind of created. We really couldn't, use anything that was like pre-built. For example, like a Unity or Unreal Engine. Every single detail was built from scratch by ourselves to really enable this like brand new game experience that we're introducing to the world.
Without further ado, it would be great. I'm not sure if Malcolm or yourself, Wei, wants to go ahead and just give an overview of AI Arena, what it actually is, because from my perspective, there's so many intricacies to what this project is.
Sure, I'll start there, and Malcolm, you can feel free to add details that I maybe have missed. But the core essence of the game is, I think the starting point to understand it is that we're creating a brand new game loop. So we say that this experience has never existed before, and we're quite convinced that it has never been done before. So the starting point is to understand that the game loop is very different than anything that's been traditionally done before. In essence, what we have done is we built the ability for an AI to capture human skill, and then have an AI basically compete on behalf of a human in a game. And just that as a core primitive is really interesting, because now you can explore many different types of like game formats, and or kind of what does that actually mean to engage with that core game loop. So in the context of AI Arena, visually it looks like a platform fighting game. So it's something similar to like Super Smash Bros. The core game mechanic is very different. In traditional Smash, you're obviously controlling the character. In AI Arena, you basically teach this AI character what to do, and you're almost like teaching like a digital offspring, if you will. And then over time, this digital offspring becomes more and more like you, and it can basically build up this entire reservoir of skills that you have imparted onto it. And what it's able to do then is basically go into the arena and start auto battling other AIs that have been trained by other people. When it's battling and competing, you as a human do not have any control over it. You just have to basically surrender and watch how it performs, and trust in the fact that you've done enough and you were very effective in teaching it its core skills. So that's basically the core premise of it. The large part of the gameplay is actually on the training side. So it's a vast exploration of how do I actually teach this digital being how to behave in a game, and really allow it to become, ultimately, like the objective is for it to become a superstar in the arena, where it can really start to put together truly spectacular skills on its own, and fighting and competing and maybe climbing the leaderboard against other AIs. So that's the core game experience that we're currently developing on the AI Arena side.
It's super interesting stuff, and like you say, it's something that I've never come across. And I'm sure that you guys are really changing, and building a new paradigm of gaming here. In terms of, because what I think is really interesting as well is that you're saying that the main gameplay is within the training side of things. Like, if you actually delve into that, what does that look like? If someone wants to engage in AI Arena, how technical do they have to be? Do they need an understanding of AI? How's that going to work when players interact with the game?
Mm-hmm. So the design of the game, it's meant to be a video game first and foremost. So it's designed so that everyone can play it. You do not need a machine learning or AI background to play the video game. Just a small segue, we do have a separate version of the game that's specifically targeting AI researchers, but they compete in their own competition, and it's much more unconstrained. They actually get to design their own AI and battle them. But for the video game side, what we basically provide the AI for people, and what they're doing is they're just training the AI that we provide them, and they're competing on how they can like come up with better strategies to train their AI more effectively. If you zoom in into the game loop, what it actually looks like is there's 3 steps in the training process. There's data collection, configuration, and inspection. Kind of like more machine learning terms, but it's actually very simple to understand. What data collection is, you're just showing AI what to learn. So the starting point is, this is what I want you to learn. What are those things? It's core skills. For example, I want you to learn movement. What is correct movement patterns? I don't want you to fall off the stage. I want you to stay on the stage. When your opponent is here, I want you to go towards it. Movement, simple skills. What other things can you teach it in terms of the what? Combat. I want you to punch your opponent when you're really close to it. I want you to use a projectile when you're further away from it. Right? These are all things that you can show your AI. This formulates the what you want it to learn. Each session, you're probably showing your AI a different what. Right? Some sessions could be more focused on movement. Others could be more focused on combat. And then later on, you can focus on really, really detailed, intricate skills. But that's always the starting point. The second part, configuration, is once you have the what, you want to show the AI how to learn that information, right? If you showed it movement, there's different ways that the AI can actually learn that movement. And this is where you go into the configurator, which is really, it's kind of like, it feels more like a football manager type of like environment, where there's a lot of different dials and levers, and you can toggle sensitivities. And based on the combination of what you set up here, it actually teaches your AI. Your AI learns in a different way. So the what and the how starts to formulate the overall strategy of how you teach your AI throughout its course of learning. The last step in Inspector is basically, it's a diagnostic tool for the human. As a human, you look at the inspector, what it tells you is, here is what your AI has learned. So what we have built is a user interface that basically allows you to see into the brain of the AI, so to speak. And you can see your AI, like your AI's current decision-making mapping or approach based on any possible situation that the AI could be in, right? So what this allows you to do is understand, okay, so this is actually how my AI is currently making decisions. The question as a human is this the actual way that you wanted to make decisions, right? Where are the gaps? Where are the weaknesses? And as you go through this loop, which is an iterative kind of game loop, every single time you do an iteration, the inspector shows you a before and after. So you're able to isolate for, well, did my current session of training create the desired outcomes that I wanted to see in my AI? If the answer is no, scrap it, start over. If the answer is yes, great, save. And as you're saving,
you can go back if you're not happy, right?
Exactly. And what happens is over time, you're systematically stacking skills on top of each other. And then at the end of it all, what you have is an AI that's very refined and able to, perform at a very high level. If you take a step back, though, when you really start to think about this is actually how humans behave, right? This is how we learn as intelligent beings. If you want to pick up any skill, if you want to achieve mastery at anything, you don't learn and become effective by just going in there and just doing things at random, right?
Yeah.
You start by layering fundamentals, and then you build up successively, and it takes time to get there. What we've done is we've captured that same exact essence in terms of process, and now we give you, the human, to impart that process and skill onto an AI, and over time, that AI basically becomes the embodiment of you. And now it fights on your behalf.
Which is super interesting, and I love when you explain that analogy, around, well, it's not an analogy, it's just what you guys are building, right? It's that vessel. So almost human consciousness and human behavior has been encapsulated, right, inside an NFT, which is actually, obviously it's taken hours of engineering and building, but in actual fact it's it's quite simple, but it's huge what you guys are doing. It really is. And just tapping into the AI side of things and the NFT side of things, has that been developed by yourself as well, like, and how the AI learns, and then that's actually attached to the NFT?
Yeah, so basically where the NFT comes in is, I think you use the exact right word, it's a digital vessel. Think of it as like a container. With an NFT, basically what we've done is we have created the base models for this game as a starting point. It's a neural network. It's called actually a feed-forward neural network. The actual model itself is stored on IPFS, so on a decentralized storage network. There's a hash of the model that's actually stored in the NFT, which is immutably tracked on the blockchain. And really, you just need the hash to be a representation of the actual model. And we're able to do that is to use the immutable ledger that is a blockchain to record how this model has evolved over time.
Yep.
Right. And this is very important because the core part of the game on the blockchain, it's designed to be a very competitive game. And when you get to that level of competition, people care about immutability. They care about the fact that I can provably show that I own this model. And in fact, the track record that has been accumulated with this model is verifiable in a decentralized and robust and high integrity way. So this is where the NFTs play an important role in enabling that. From the tech perspective, what we have built is basically two things. Obviously, there's this model itself. It's not like this type of like feed-forward neural network has been done before, right? It's an architecture. But it's basically the game architecture or the game kind of platform that we built behind it that actually enables this type of game loop. That's the part that's really new. And that's the sum total of like 2 years of engineering work. Actually, more than that, that Brandon and the engineering team has been putting into the game for that entire period of time to get it to a point where we can actually power this type of game experience. I think that's where the true novelty lies.
So everything that you guys have come up with to date and have built to date, is this has been 2 years work in the background, or is this even longer? Because obviously now, I've come across you guys, I see AI Arena around on Twitter, but for a while, were you guys building in stealth?
Basically, yeah. We started the project in late 2020. So December 2020 is when the three co-founders got together and had kind of initial brainstorming sessions of what this all could become. So it's been just a little bit over 2 years now. I would say the tech itself that we built is actually longer than 2 years, because that has been years of trial and error on the part of Brandon in basically designing novel algorithms and applying those things to the financial markets in a quantitative trading context. And the learnings that he's taken away from that experience that now he has brought into AI Arena, and which have allowed him to create this kind of like proprietary tech stack to power this game experience. I don't think without the benefit of that entire cross-section of experience that this game platform is actually possible. So, in some ways, like there was that kind of like, embedded IP that we like brought over from even longer than 2 years, when really that was like 2 years ago was this inception of the ideation around this idea.
So you could probably say there's quite from anyone else doing anything else like this in the space, you've got quite a protective moat in terms of what you are building, because it's been built out for so long. Like, is there anyone else doing anything remotely similar like this? Because I haven't seen anything. I'm just wondering, if there is, are you aware of them? What are they doing?
Yeah, I think there have been and there will be more and more AI games out there. I would say where most of AI is being applied to games today, and where the trend is still headed, is on the capability of generative AI tools to create things like new background design, like the aesthetic component of character design. There's like natural language processing models that are now powering more expressive NPCs. So like your interaction in these type of like role-playing games, etc., could be a bit more expressive, right? So I think from our vantage point, that's where everything is happening. What we have done is we come to the table with, well, let's reimagine from a first principles basis what an AI, like immersive AI interactive experience actually feels like, right? Because I would say in all those other descriptions, it's almost like the AI is still in the periphery. It's making the environment more exciting. I get it. But is the AI kind of the protagonist in the core loop of the game? I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where we're coming to the table. Now, if you ask me, are there competitors that are creating a similar type of experience? I would say, yeah, there are probably a couple that I would say are attempting to do something similar. But I don't think anyone has created the core game loop that we have. And what we have seen is people are starting to use AI models and replacing traditional game character models with AI models. That is closer, but not exactly the experience that we're imparting, because really it's like, it's still quite like, it's still within the confines of a traditional game loop. It's just that the engine that's powering this character is slightly different than before. What we have done is the interaction between human and AI. That is the core thing that's different. This interactivity and the expansiveness of the exploration space of this interaction is not like anything that we've seen on market. And to your point, our fundamental belief is that we do have a moat, because no one has built this. And I would say, like, I question whether or not another group can in a meaningful amount of time, in a reasonable amount of time. It's not an easy engineering effort to do this. And it's not like just because you have a large budget, you can create this. There's a lot of like a cross section of like learnings along the way that was just brutally hard engineering problems that Brandon had to overcome that led to this point of creating something holistic like this game platform. So yeah, we really do think we have a moat, and we definitely want to be well positioned to be first to market and really push and showcase this to the world.
Absolutely. Well, I'd like to dive into where you're at with the game at the moment, because Malcolm, I know you've had some really exciting feedback, I understand, from things that are going on at the moment in terms of testing. So, Malcolm, from your perspective, where are you guys at with the game? How far are you along, and how are things going so far?
Sure, I can put some color on that. So right now we are at beta 2.0. So the distribution mechanics of our project is based on meritocracy. So in order to be a part of the ecosystem, you have to be good at our game. And what's better way to prove that than just playing the games? So what we have out there is to onboarding about like 150 people at this batch to duke it out in training their AI, transferring their skill into the AI within the time span of 1 week. And they're going to climb this leaderboard based on the ELO rating system. And the top 50 percentile, so 75 people for this batch will be able to get a min pass from us. That's the major way that we distribute this min passes. So in order to qualify for on the beta, so you have to play test in what we call the playground. So this is like a reduced version, a very limited version on the data collection part, similar to any kind of platform fighting game. You go to browser, you start fighting one of our preset AI we call beast mode. If you beat beast mode under various conditions, using certain weight classes of fighter in certain maps, then we look at your data and we're confident that you will be a tremendous asset by being a player within our beta. Then we're gonna onboard you to the beta. That's one group of the people. At the same time, we are broadening our horizon by reaching out different parties. It could be Web3 Esports people, Web3 analytics, content creators, and even Web2 traditional esport organizations. Some have expressed that interest, in a very proprietary, genre of gaming. So we are onboarding these people into the beta and let them try out the game, have them to speak for themselves. If they are good at the game, we have no other reason to not, to invite them to be part of our ecosystem by giving them the free min pass. So that's the logic of how we distribute our asset and where we are at the event organization part.
Yep, amazing stuff. So, and that's one thing I wanted to move on to next. As far as I understand, there's going to be very much a free element of this game where anybody can play, but there's going to be the more competitive side. As you've mentioned, this game is set up for big competitions, which we'll dive into. But at the moment, in terms of weeding out typically those best players, you really are showcasing the best gameplay. People have to go through these tests, as you mentioned. They get a mint pass. At what point will they be able to mint one of the AI Arena NFTs for real? Have you got a timestamp for that and a time date?
Yeah, we're currently targeting sometime over the summer to launch the NFT version of the competition. And the idea is the NFTs themselves will basically be like the professional tier of competitors. So the supply of the NFTs are actually quite scarce. There's going to be about 500 to 750 of them. And really, as the game scales over time into larger and larger audiences, what we want to do is to build this like professional league of superstars that are competing at a really high level. It starts to kind of take on the traditional esports or sports type of model. And with that, we want to focus on generating the best content and use that content to captivate more and more people and start to build that large base of players around the world. So the NFT version of the game requires like an NFT. There's also the ability to earn through kind of our native tokens, which are designed as a mechanism to create incentive for these professional players. And then to your point, there's also going to be a free-to-play version of the game, where that's the mass market version, where anyone can basically come onto our platform, try out the core game loop, experience it. What does it feel like to train an AI? How does it learn? All of those things. And, a lot of people will be like, okay, this is really cool and fun. And that'll be it for them. But then there will be a small cohort of people that probably has the aspiration to compete. And that group become what we call like the competitive class. And they're basically like playing this game in a way where they're trying to qualify for the upper echelon, right? So like, if you think about it, this is exactly how sports work. Is there's probably billions of people out there playing like baseball, soccer, basketball, but there's literally like 500 professionals playing in the NBA, the MLB, or the NFL, right? So, and then in the middle is like various different structures of people trying to climb, semi-professional to like professional tier. So yeah, that's how we envision this. And the starting point for us, as Malcolm mentioned, is we need to be very focused in capturing skilled players, right? And the only way that we can identify them is to force them through competition by playing the game. And what comes out the other side is, by definition, skilled players. Because you can't be skilled unless, like, if you're finishing in the top whatever, you obviously have skill. So we use this as a way to basically like create a way for us to allocate our NFTs in a much more effective manner. Or else, if we chose to do kind of a traditional launch mechanic, it would be very difficult for us to identify the right people who are actually going to use our NFTs and compete and who are actually good at the game. So the game itself is actually that filtering mechanism in the center, which has actually worked quite well for us throughout the first few betas.
So if anyone wanted to sort of get involved in preparation for this, I know obviously you're being very stringent in terms of who you're letting in and who you're distributing the mint passes out to. Like, are the mint passes at the moment, at present, are they on the secondary? Like, can people go and purchase those at this point in time? And would that allow those guys to play the game?
Yeah, so it is listed. It's on OpenSea, so you can go and purchase it on a secondary market. So yes, technically, if you have the mint pass, you're going to be able to mint a playable NFT. Let's say sometime over the summer when we launch. What we do anticipate over time, though, is these are, if all goes well and we build the audience, these are going to be high value assets, right? So initially, I think players will be able to afford them and basically purchase it's almost, you can think about it as like a franchise, right?
Yep.
It's a expressive franchise, right? Why? Because you can use this asset to play the game, but it's also the asset that earns and share in the profit potential of the broader ecosystem, right? Because most of the economics over time accrues to these NFTs within the ecosystem. That's why we think about it as a franchise, right? So right now, I think you can go on the secondary market and you can purchase it. Would it be actual players who are purchasing it? I don't know. It could be. But it could also be people who see the opportunity for their ability to start a team in this game, right? Whether it's an esports team, a broader organized group of people who are playing. Sure, for sure, there's some people who are purely in it for the speculation. We can't control for that. But at the end of the day, I think what we're going to get is a nice cross-section of different types of owners in this space. We don't anticipate every single person who owns an NFT to be a player, but we do think that a majority of them will be players. Because as you think about, like, if you have to compete and you get out the other side and you earn into one of these NFTs, chances are you're going to hold on to them. Because you found that I actually do enjoy the game and I do want to compete because I've demonstrated that I am good at the game. And in the early days of us, like, iteratively releasing these NFTs to the secondary market, you've seen that most people don't sell their NFTs because they competed, they enjoy it, and they want to stick around and compete when the actual game goes live. So that's kind of the process. But yes, like right now, the short answer to your question is listed. People can buy it, and we'll see what that ownership group looks like. But I think over time, you will naturally want different types of people as owners in your ecosystem because they will play different roles in making this ecosystem more and more robust and attractive and help it to grow in different ways.
And when these NFTs are essentially minted into AI Arena characters to be trained as everything we've discussed, I can imagine in terms of a bit of a supply and demand mechanic, if I'm right in saying this, like, if these certain NFTs have been trained, have won multiple competitions, I imagine they're going to go for quite significant sums should AI Arena gather the traction that it's looking to get, right?
Yeah, I mean, we certainly think so. I mean, it depends on how big the base of the audience is, right? Like if you have audiences, players in the hundreds of thousands of like daily or monthly active users, if you only have 500 to 750 at the top, I mean, there's strong demand for those assets, right? Yeah. If you continue to scale into millions of users, yet again, your assets are probably going to get bid up. So it's intended to be that way because if you think about why sports work, it's not, I mean, the sport itself has to be captivating. So let's say the game itself has to be captivating. But what is most captivating is actually the superstars who can perform at such a high level, because it's the human interest stories, the narratives, and the star power that really captures audiences, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is economic incentives, right? So like things aren't like, if, for example, like if LeBron James doesn't make $100 million a year, he's not going to be as famous as he is. Like it just doesn't, that's not how economics works, right? You can say, you can idealistically want to believe that people who have skills should command market premiums, but no, there's always a market financial incentive that creates a signal that now attracts attention. So that's the thesis behind our design. And the reason we're able to kind of build this out is because we have a very competitive game that's very deep. Those are condition precedent. You can't build this model with just any average game. Like a lot of games are trying to say it will be esports and it'll be competitive. It's like, It's not though. You know what I mean? Like it's inherently there's a skill cap, there's a skill ceiling. Inherently, it's like it's not like there's probably times where you start to converge on a meta, and it gets just it's almost like permanently stuck there. Like if you have those things imparted into your game, it's very difficult to spin up this type of framework. It just won't work.
Yeah.
And the reason why we designed it this way is only because we have an infinite game with no skill cap. This game doesn't end. It cannot end. It's like chess. It's like asking people, like, does chess end? No, it doesn't. It's just like new people come in and play chess, and someone like starts to figure out a new strategy, and they start to dominate the game. So I think all of those things, like we've thought about the design to fit the type of game that we have, and this is kind of the path that we're going on.
And like, it's that side of it, and how infinite the game is truly is, one of the remarkable things about what you guys are building. The amount of different combinations, the amount of different training styles. It is, like you say, it's like any sport, right? If you look at, well, football over here, but soccer, as you guys may call it. But, if you look at that 50 years ago, the players are nowhere near as good as they are now. Like the game has completely changed. They're more athletic, they're faster, they can turn quicker, they're more powerful. And, based on what you've said, because you've got that human intervention, that side of things is you're probably going to see that in the digital realm as well. So yeah, it's super interesting. And I know, as you have been speaking, I'm getting my, head around the process and, how it's going to operate, but there's so many cool things which are going to come out of this. I'd be really keen to understand the feedback you've had so far. Like you guys have been beta testing, you've had some players play the game. What sort of feedback are you seeing at the moment? Have people been impressed with what you guys have built? How does that look at the moment?
Yeah, I think when we talk about gaming, nowadays there's two set of games. Some games are more casual, some games are more hardcore, rewarding type of game. We definitely belong to the later. So we do see that the learning curve to activate for our players is pretty high threshold. But once you get that first dopamine hit, that you successfully transfer some part of your skill to your AI, that's an experience that nobody has ever experienced. Like not just gaming, but at a bigger aspect of life. It's just like an experience that you can't find elsewhere. And that power allow us to retain a lot of these very, talented people in Web3. Instead of going around into different other projects, we just stand out so much, not just as a project, but a gaming project and an experience as a whole. So right now, what we're seeing, the people that we are able to cultivate from the first batch of beta, which is December last year, almost every single one of them has been retained within our Discord server. In this like a bear market, usually a lot of people, they mint and they go to the next project. But for us, some of these star players, they stick around. And these people are not just your regular nobody. I think some of their pledging, if you go through our Discord, you see some of these names, you can tell that, they are onto us for a variety of reasons. There's stuff that we are able to provide, not just on the concept of the products, but the experience that we are able to provide as this complete new genre of gaming experience about AI. Just, you can't find it elsewhere.
Yeah, I would say, I think that captures it very well. What I would say though is part of the development curve of this project is, coming to the table with something radically different is both good and bad. There's pros and cons to it. The pros is it's so different and so interesting that when people find it, they have this like incredible affinity to the project. The con is there's probably much more friction initially because there's nothing to compare it to. You're almost like you're explaining everything from scratch. You're kind of like you have to educate and you have to like handhold everyone through that experience, but very methodically. That's challenging, right? Because if you're building a product that people already understand, the communication is super efficient, right? The analogy of like, well, we're building X for Web3, right?
Uber for X type thing.
Yeah, Uber for X kind of a thing, right? Like, and that, it works because it's mimetic, it's salient, it cuts through the noise and people get it. When we came to the table with AI Arena, we're like, this is the, and it's like now you have to like explain the whole thing. So this, however, like when I look at it, it's like when you have such a compelling product and you get the signal from the people who played it and experienced it, you understand that in some ways it's inevitable, that it will catch on to the masses. Now, the only remaining variable that we have to solve as a team is how do we systematically reduce the friction and make it easier and easier and easier and easier to onboard. And if you look at even 2 years ago versus now, our messaging has become way more clearer, right? Our product has become way more efficient in terms of like getting new people acclimated to the game. We're making dramatic step function improvements there to lower the friction, and we'll get there. Like we'll lower the friction to a point where it's like it almost feels like there's no friction to onboard. That's just a matter of iteration and effort. But what you can't replace is the experience of the game. That once you get to that, what Malcolm is describing, it's like once you hit that first loop where you're like, oh my god, my AI has learned this because I showed it what to do, and you can see it performing out of that. It's magical. And I've been with it every step of the way. I still find those moments when I'm training my AI, and full disclosure, I'm really not that great at this game, but even the small wins feel so monumental. It's significant. And I think this is also a thing that's really important, because I think gaming and in general, like society has now trended to optimizing for reduction in friction. Like everything is about reducing friction. How do we make things faster? Blah blah blah. And what we have now is a world where it's like there's just cheap thrills and cheap like dopamine hits and just saturation of things that like completely obliterate our nervous system throughout the day, right? And we're in stark contrast to that, because this thing does take effort. But it's so much more rewarding once you get there. Yeah. And I think that contrast is really important, because it's almost like when your entire world is consumed in a way of doing things, and then you discover this thing, even though it does take effort, it's so much more meaningful. And once you find it, it's like, I would rather it be difficult, because that's the essence of the game, right? And the challenge of overcoming, the challenge of climbing that leaderboard, the challenge of like, I can get my AI to improve, that is the magic over time. So we have a lot of conversations, and sometimes people are skeptical. It's like, oh, it's too difficult, too complex. And it's like, no, that's exactly why it's so captivating. Without that, you lose all of this. None of this actually works, right? And in fact, in my view, if you don't have this, you don't have a moat. The switching costs are way too low. There's 1,000 different alternatives out there that can give you the exact experience. Why are people going to stay, right? And here it's like, okay, maybe we have to figure out how to reduce the friction, and we get out of the gates a little bit slower in terms of adoption. But once we kind of figure that out, and people really, like more and more people experience this loop, it's going to be one of those things where it's so powerful that everyone's going to want to tell other people about it. And the conversation is going to go, but no, like any kind of like, any type of like rebuttal, people are like, but no, you don't understand. Like, you just have to try it. You have to try it. Like, you have to go in and try it. And once you get there, it's like, okay, I get it now. Yeah. I get it now. So this is where I think, we still have a lot of work to do, but we're going to get there. The signal is the feedback that we get from even the early users, and our ability to retain these high quality people, as Malcolm mentioned.
Because as well, and it's amazing that you've had such, and look, I get it, by the way. Like, I think what chess is a great analogy. Do you know what I mean? There's so many mobile games out there that you can just jump on and play, and you don't need to think about it at all. Anyone can jump on. chess, you have to learn, you have to get better. The games become better and better and better as you become more proficient. And I can see that it's adding it into the digital realm, and it makes complete sense. And I think what else is really interesting, and what I know our listeners would be, you know, impressed to hear, is that not only have you guys had great feedback, but when you so I understand, following our last conversation, when you were putting the beta out, you had a lot of interest, right, from different communities, different brands actually applying to want to get involved. So I understand. I don't know how much you can share about that, but I think that's something to note.
Yeah, we had basically, like, first of all, I didn't know that there were so many communities of Web3, but apparently there are. There's like literally thousands of them.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of different applications of projects wanting to compete in our betas, but because they understood, like, the only way to really earn into one of our NFTs is to compete. And then they found the game to be novel, so they wanted to try for themselves. But what we've done over time is we've like, because the demand was so overwhelming, like, we were in the fortunate position to be very selective. So what we did was we actually increased the requirement to get into a beta. And we forced, we just put a level playing field. So there's an on-ramp for external communities to compete in our beta. There's specific slots that we allocate for external communities to populate. In the second beta, what we said was five spots per team, but you guys have to come to the table with the best 5 players in your ecosystem. The best 5.
Oh.
You guys figure out who the best 5 is in your community. And bring them into this competition, because at the end of the day, it is a competition. And you guys are also going to be pitted up against other communities. So there's pride and ego on the line too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to have necessarily a poor showing in something. So I think all of those things have, like, created the ability for us to, when we look at the applications now, we're definitely increasing the probability that many of these players are going to be competitive. And that's, quite honestly, one of the biggest challenges for most games in Web3 is, like, how do you actually even find players, right? Because there is this entire financial speculation metagame that's happening out there, and you don't know who the players are right now, right? And the data visibility hasn't gotten to a point where you can tell the difference. So what are things that you can do to actually filter for skill content and actual players for the game? So we've elected to be very stringent with how we onboard people. And, you know, I think, again, it probably uniquely works in our context because we have such a competitive game at its core that's ready to go that we can use. But so far it's been working out well. But to your question, like, it's very difficult to get in, and we wanted it to be that way. Now, over time, in the coming month, we're going to relax that constraint. Like, we're going to have a demo version of the game that's ready to go. And as new people are coming to our community, they can try it out. They can play the demo, and they can start to experience. And this is what we want. We want the experience to be available, and then we want the competition to be happening. So now the people who are experiencing it, they can watch in the competition, and the competition can now have an audience that is now more in tune with what they're doing. Once we have those, like, separate pipes built up, it becomes even more powerful. And now you get that kind of, like, effect within the ecosystem, within the community, where I think it just creates a nice flywheel there. Yeah,
absolutely. And I guess from my perspective, understanding how you graduate into a fully, a full-fledged esports program and platform, is it the case where the competition gets higher and higher, the stakes get higher, the audience needs to be there, of course, and it's just a case of, okay, people are making a full profession out of this, and at that point, are you then, I guess, classified in terms of what you're building as, if you look at the moment some of the biggest esports like League of Legends, that type of thing, and I think you guys have got the potential to be, in that space and in that arena, because just in terms of the visual gameplay, you can see how exciting it is. And, the steps, I guess everything you've mentioned in terms of how you're growing, is it just a case where you get to an inflection point where, okay, we are now big enough to be, considered esports, or, do you have to, apply, go to certain, I guess, committees in esports to I guess, move into that field? How does that work?
I think it's going to be a combination of the two. I think there's the natural organic growth aspect of it. So if we build a large enough audience, the assets will be coveted and it will naturally attract the attention of esports pros. Because esports pros are motivated by two primary things: competition and financial incentive.
Yeah.
It's actually quite simple. The other aspect is we will be doing active outreach and trying to bring esports stars into the ecosystem. And the great thing that positions our game well to capture their attention is, number one, it's different. It's competitive. It's like, if you are really a competitive person, you probably find this to be attractive because now you have a new domain to assert your dominance and say, hey, I am once again going to come into a new game and just dominate the field. That's one.
Yep.
Number two, there's the whole financial incentive aspect of it. Number three is the novelty of the AI angle. If you think about yourself as an esports star, you think about branding and marketability. Is there another mega thing that's unfolding right now that's more attractive than AI from a branding perspective? I don't think so. I don't
Probably
think so.
not.
And this is going to be a multi-decade trend that's going to unfold. If I were an esports star, I would probably be thinking about how do I bridge my brand into that domain. And lo and behold, now there's a game that actually allows me to, basically latch onto this theme in a very kind of on-brand way to what I'm creating in terms of my content, etc. Like that's a perfect marriage in many ways. And then the final thing, which is the kicker, is esports stars also care about one other thing, which is their time. The most valuable thing is your time. And the issue for them has always been, if I commit my time to one thing, it means I can't commit my time to other things. So I need to focus my time to perfect a craft that's going to earn me the highest market payout potential. Usually what that means is I got to focus on one game. Because if I don't focus, I'm not as competitive and my earning potential decreases. And, if I spread myself too thin, I don't maximize profit. In our game, the great thing is, because it's AI, battles are asynchronous. And you can play this game completely asynchronously. So this game actually fits your lifestyle as opposed to the other way around, where normal games, you have to fit your lifestyle to the game.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a competitive game.
Yeah.
Here is the opposite. You can train your AI whenever you want. And when you want to battle, it's 100% availability. There's infinite matchmaking liquidity. And this is a huge unlock for esports players because their time is the most valuable resource that they have. With this, they can basically, they can expand into this game while fitting it into their own schedules, and it's purely accretive. It's almost like purely accretive to their overall earning potential. It is not an opportunity cost to them. So I think those elements together positions us very well with that audience. And our next steps is we're going to be much more active in outreach and, try to bootstrap with a couple or a few big time esports players and see if we can convince them to come over and really compete in this game.
And then a couple of steps toward it, like so much to talk about. Like the novelty of AI Wei mentioned, there's actually a couple facets to it. Like one step is when we're talking about esports, a lot of time the only thing that matters in any kind of esports is the in real life IRL events. Because that's the only event when your skill is proven. Anything else happen online, there could be like a potential aimbot, some kind of cheating. But in our case, because it's your AI battle autonomously, online. So the potential of someone, potentially cheating is completely non-existent in our side. So that alone as a skill proof in the Web3 online, that is something that not existent outside. So I think we're solving a lot of different questions out there. People always ask does it matter if in any kind of FPS I rank really high on Steam? But there's no way to prove it unless you're in a tournament. Same question that happened to Tekken or some kind of fighting game, same stuff. But for us, what you see on the rank is the actual result, a manifestation of your skill. So there's so much stuff to talk about there. Just want to add on.
Yeah, and obviously, like you say, once the esports star has trained the AI, like they can essentially, I don't know quite the mechanic on how that'll work, but like, can they just run almost automated, they almost send their AI off and do the battles. People can visualize and watch them, but they could be, they could be on holiday, for example, and their AI's out there just crushing it. They've got people cheering for it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, it makes complete sense. It's almost like, you're you've trained it, but the robot's there, and the robot doesn't get tired.
It doesn't.
It can keep going.
It's always available. And the other thing is, not only do we have infinite matchmaking liquidity within a type of competition, you have the same infinite matchmaking liquidity across multiple different types of competitions. So to your point, like, yes, if you have a really good AI that you train over time, you can go on vacation and you just preset competition schedules.
Yes.
Nothing stops you from doing that. And, your AI is battling, it's good. It's probably winning a good portion of its matches, right? It's really interesting as a concept to imagine what can unfold from this. But again, this lends itself so nicely to that particular type of player because this is what they dream of.
Yep. It's interesting. I think it was Naval Ravikant who said it. When are the robots coming? And then he said they're already here. You don't even realize. It's like when people scale content and the TikTok algorithm will send it to 100,000, 200,000 people for you, right? And then now, AI Arena, for example, you're training and then it's going out and doing the battles. People say, okay, the robots, right? They assume they're going to be in people's homes, but in fact, the first iteration of them, and we're just seeing it now play out in first hand, is online. And it's crazy. It really is. So yeah, look, guys, I know we're sort of running out of time now, but thank you so much. I'm sure we'll speak again. There's probably going to be more and more things that we can chat about as the game unfolds. Yeah. Anything else you want to sign off on? Any events you guys have coming up? Any shout outs you want to do? Now's your chance, right?
Yeah, first of all, shout out to the entire AI Arena team. I think Malcolm and I are here speaking on behalf of the team, but it's been a tremendous effort of the 20 individuals that are working on this project. So shout outs to the broader team. In terms of what's coming up, I'm not sure when this is going to air, but the second beta competition is happening basically February 15th to February 21st. So if you guys are around for that, definitely tune in, or even if you missed it, you can check out like highlights and things after the fact. And then, there's more exciting things to come. We're targeting to launch the NFT version of the competition over the summer. But in the meantime, there is, a pretty big kind of partnership announcement that we're going to be announcing soon. And there will be obviously more kind of data competitions for us to fill out the initial 500 to 750 NFT slots. We're working on a demo version of the game that we will be also releasing soon so that people can start to experience the game without having to, qualify to compete in a beta. So all of those things are coming down the pipe. We are super excited, and this has been a lot of fun. And thanks for having us, and we definitely look to come back at some point in the future.
I appreciate it. It's great stuff. Malcolm, you want to sign off with anything?
Well, when people say dopamine, they always mistag it for just the result. I think dopamine is also the pursuit of the result. So we got the whole package here at AI Arena. So come follow our Twitter, AI Arena _. We host you, give you the fun stuff, give you the real dopamine. So.
There you go.
Well, for sure, we'll definitely plug all your socials and links on this podcast underneath. So, guys, if you want to go check them out, I suggest you do. Follow the links below. But look, guys, thank you very much. We'll speak soon.